Journey to Lemora, Chapter 23. The Lost Boy. Every day I grew stronger with my wood and spirit magic, and my dreams of the boy Lucien grew more and more vivid. I could hear his voice, which had a slight drawling slang to it, even in Faelarian. I could smell the grass as he struggled training to become guardian. Ricarian watched over his shoulder just as Anu does for us. The wind blew through my hair, and as I pulled it back around my ear, I couldn't shake how very vivid and real it felt to be there. Even if it was only a vision, I wasn't just watching it, I was experiencing this moment. My curiosity piqued. I had to find out more about Lucien, and I decided to finally ask Lelian about him. I wanted to ask her before, but with the recent events, I never had the opportunity. I didn't start dreaming about him until I came to the grove, and I couldn't believe it was a coincidence. She was the only one I knew I could ask. I checked the great oak, but she wasn't there. I asked around, and one of the Fae pointed to a small alcove which was blocked from the rest of the grove with thick, thorny bushes. I stepped inside and found it surprisingly cozy. There were woven carpets on the ground, and beautifully carved boxes filled with many scrolls. Lelian was the seer of the Faelarians, and this alcove must be where she records her visions privately. Unfortunately, she wasn't anywhere inside. I sat on one of the carpets and waited, and waited, and waited some more. I checked the entryway several times, but there was no sign of Lelian. I was about to leave when something caught my eye. A stack of papers, not the usual scrolls, were sprawled out on the far end of the alcove on the floor. I immediately recognized the scrawled handwriting. These were more pages from Mom's journal. Hastily, I picked them up. A letter to Lelian read, "My dearest friend, I am eternally grateful for everything you've done for me. You took us in without hesitation, despite the danger I bring with me. It is thanks to your protection that I was able to spend these last wonderful weeks with Lucien. It is my greatest regret that I have returned to Lemora before he was born, before he could meet John or Catty. I beg you, please, continue to look after my son. They have returned for me, and he is not safe with me anymore." I stared wide-eyed at the letter. Son? It wasn't possible. I turned the letter over, which was very old and stained with what I assumed were tears. Lelian was reading this very recently. She knew, from the moment we met, exactly who I was, and yet she never told me about him. My brother, Lucien. I turned around and saw Lelian in the doorway. She looked shocked and ashamed at first. Then her face went blank. "Catty, you should not be here," she uttered in a low voice. "What is this? I have a brother? Where is Lucien?" I demanded, trembling, and I held up the letter. "We do not speak of him. Leave, now," she snapped coldly. "Why? Why didn't you tell me? You were supposed to look after him, so where is he?" I screamed, crumpling the letter in my fist. "Out, now!" Lelian yelled back uncharacteristically, and as I stormed past her, the thorny vines grew and stretched, closing the entrance to the alcove behind me. I could hear her weeping behind the wall of thorns, but I didn't care. My fury drummed in my ears and heat rushed to my face. I walked briskly out of the grove, passing Anu without acknowledging him. He started to follow me through the forest. "Catty, what's wrong?" he asked, but I didn't answer. I kept walking through the forest, increasing my pace, but Anu kept up with me. "Did you ask Lelian about the boy from your dream?" he asked hesitantly, and I finally stopped in my tracks. You knew too. This whole time you knew I have a brother, didn't you? Why didn't you tell me?" All this time, instead of wasting my time learning magic, I could have been looking for him. Where is he?" I cried, shaking. "I did. Please forgive me. Your mother asked me to keep him secret for his own protection. When she returned to Lemora, she didn't know she was with child. I brought her to the Faelarians, hoping they would look after her and her child, which they did, but now he is also gone. He left the grove a while ago, along with his guardian duties. The Faelarians do not speak of him. In their eyes, he is a traitor." I picked up a rock which was thick with moss, and I threw it as hard as I could. It thudded onto the ground and tumbled across other rocks, cracking and scraping. She left him, just like she left Dad and me. I picked up another rock. She left him, and he was just a baby. The rock smashed against a tree with a thick thud. She left him alone, in this strange world full of monsters and magic. For what? For what? I bent to pick up another rock and cut my finger. The blood glistened darkly in the moonlit forest. My rage had finally subsided, and all I felt was pain. I cried, rocking myself as the blood dripped from my finger, and my tears spattered onto the rocks below. If my mother really was pregnant when she vanished, my brother would only be about 10 years old now. A child abandoned, teased, and outcast from the people who took him in. Where was he now? I so desperately wanted to find my mother before, but if I saw her now, I didn't know what I would say. The very thought of her made my insides boil. "I'm so sorry, Catty," Anu said, putting his small paw on my hand and healing my cut. We walked in silence back to the grove. I climbed into my hammock and fell asleep. I slept well into the next day. I didn't leave my hammock. I didn't even leave for food or drink, and the others kept coming by, looking concerned. I didn't want to talk to them. I felt this deep sense of loss and betrayal, like someone precious to me really did die. The very idea of who I thought my mother was disintegrated. She not only left me, but took away the brother I never knew I had. Amber had finally managed to get me out of my hammock and made me eat and drink. My depression had put her at her limits, and she wouldn't take any more of it. I drank all of my water, but still picked at my food. "Catty, you've got to snap out of this. We're all struggling here. I can't sit here and watch you let yourself waste away." She snapped at me as she put more food on my leaf. To Amber's dismay, I got up and left the food untouched. I couldn't eat. My head was so wrapped up in my thoughts. The boy from my dream was my kid brother this whole time. I wasn't surprised he abandoned his duty as guardian. It seemed like an unreasonable amount of responsibility to place on a 10-year-old's shoulders. I was at least 6 years older than him, and this burden felt overwhelming to me. As a guardian of Lemora, would I ever be allowed to return to Earth? Anu had promised us we would, but I wasn't sure we could trust his word anymore. It wasn't until I got a surprise visit from Shayla that I got some much-needed perspective. I felt I could tell her about my situation, because she was the only one who knew about Lucian and didn't lie. "I see. So he is your brother? I should have noticed. You do look very alike," Shayla said with a soft smile. "I just don't understand. We've been spending all this time training with her, telling her revealing things from my dreams even, and she couldn't even tell me about my brother. I'm only here because I wanted to find my missing family. My mom is most likely dead, but I have a living little brother out there somewhere." I nearly yelled, exasperated, but caught myself before anyone else noticed. "He is your brother, but to Lelian, he was much more. He was a son to her. Your mother trusted Lelian with him, and she did her best to raise him. When he abandoned his duties, it brought her so much shame and pain. Exiles are not to be spoken of, Shayla said, shaking her head. But why? We are a people of the forest, and our magic is all about connection and communication. Together we are like one great tree. When a limb becomes twisted and diseased, you must cut it off before the poison reaches the rest of the tree. She thought Lucien was a disease? He's just a kid, I glared defensively. No, she fought very hard for Lucien, but his fate is up to Lestan, the elder, as is all things. The elder is the roots of the tree. She thought it was best for Lucien to leave and be forgotten. But I could never forget him, and neither could Lelian. Refusing to be guardian is really that big of an offense? Even for a kid, that seems too harsh. No one from Lemora has ever refused the call. Lestan say it is because he was born in this world, but not truly from it. Half of him anyway. It's funny you say that. I felt the same way about my own world. I never really belonged there either, but at least over there we have the freedom to choose who we become. Although I was still upset with Lelian, I felt like I understood her a little better. At least she had fought for Lucien, whereas my own mother had left him behind. Mom was supposed to have been a great guardian, and yet she always ran instead of standing and fighting. If I had to be guardian anyway, I was going to fight, especially for the people I care about. Hello, my name is Ella, and welcome to my channel. Here I'll be sharing with you my stories, artwork, animations. If you enjoy my content, please support me by clicking the like button, subscribing, sharing, or ringing the bell for notifications. Links to my website and social media are below. I will be releasing content in sequential order, so please check for new chapters each week.